Now we're not muted.
Oh, okay, good. Uh-oh, echoing.
Muted now.
Okay, good.
Should be good.
Okay, awesome.
The mic is right here on the corner.
Is that closer? Okay.
29?
Don't kill yourself getting that.
Thanks, Kendall.
You're welcome.
Trap me.
Like it's trapped.
She wants to sit in the car.
Yeah.
I know, just like in a movie theater, right? Okay. Before we get started, I'll just do a sound check for those online. So if you can hear me and you're attending online, go ahead and type into the chat.
We did abs in my workout class.
Oh,
last night.
good. Thanks, Melissa. Are you sore?
Yeah, now I have a cough.
Oh, no.
It's a bad combination.
Maybe one of Martha's brownies will help you. Counterproductive, help you feel better. Okay, good. It looks like everybody can hear. We're right at 9:30. Do you want to go ahead and get started?
Sure. Morning, everybody. This is Jennifer Jacobson Wood, the chair, speaking. And we're going to go around the room and do introductions.
Let's start with you, Amanda, and then we'll go last.
Amanda Gray. I work for RSA.
And then we'll jump to you, Erin.
I'm Erin Roberts. I'm from Illinois Prairie District Public Library in Memory.
I'm Megan Mooney from the Galesburg Public Library.
Lori Haller from Washington District Library. Maria Garcia, Peoria Public. Joanne Heilman, Pekin Public.
Tracy Carroll, Pekin Public.
We'll jump.
Miranda Calhoun, RSA.
Liza Hickey, RSA. Rhonda Bierman, RSA.
Courtney Young, Village of Avon Public Library.
Martha Troxel, RSA.
Wendy Adams Good, RSA.
Looks like James is in the back. Oh, we've got two more coming. Okay.
Karen McClure, Normal.
Good. We've got Karen from Normal.
And Rebecca.
And Rebecca from Normal's coming too. Do you want to read, Amanda, the online attendees?
Yeah. So we've got Amy Gold from Kewanee, Anita Smith from Henderson County, Ann Reeves from Eureka, Becky Parkey from Peoria, Beth Stutlinger from Lily M. Evans Library, Bobby Moss from Kentucky, Corey Zimmerman, not quite sure which library he's from, Debbie Gehrig from Dunlap, Genevieve Croats from Chillicothe, Julia Kozak Callaghan from Normal, Karen Doris, who is also from Normal, Katie Sumner from Marquette Heights, Marla Surgeon from Spoon River College, Mary Fisher Miller from Chatsworth, Melissa DeVerger from Quincy Public, Melody Heck from Galvin Public, Pat Willard from Public Library, and Uzma from Normal Public Library.
Okay, great. I'll let you do your introduction.
And I'm Jennifer Jacobson Wood, the chair of the RSA Database Committee.
I'm Erica Laughlin, the Cataloging and Database Supervisor. Okay, so let's pull up the agenda. And I thought the first thing we would do is talk about officers. I know when we last met in September, we talked about chair and secretary for this committee. So we'll take a look at the agenda and then we'll talk more about officers. The agenda is posted in the usual place. So if you're on the RSA homepage, rsanfp.com, there's that left menu in blue, RSA board, committees, groups. And then the DB Management Committee, again from the left or either from the body of the page. So if we scroll to the middle of the page here, let's open the agenda. Okay, so we took care of number one. The next thing, like I said, we talk about officers, co-chair, chair, or secretary. And then we'll get into the details about our upcoming projects that are really happening soon. It seems like we've been talking about these for a long time, but they're actually coming together here pretty quickly. And then we'll get into some items on basic workflows cataloging, and hopefully we'll have some time to talk about OCLC cataloging, including your connection client upgrade that we'll need to do before March 1st. And then if there's time at the end, I'll show you a few things in my update. So we have another full agenda, but we'll do the best we can, and we want to make sure we have plenty of time for discussion about the Quincy project and the deduplication in case there's questions about that. Okay. So in terms of electing officers, I thought what I would do is just read the responsibilities again, and then I thought I'd have you, Jennifer, just talk a little bit about how it's been being chair, and then if you two, Erin, would be willing to come up and just talk a little bit about how it's been being secretary. So either chair or co-chair, you're elected to a one-year term. There's no term limit maximum, and we're trying to do the elections in January just to keep it consistent. I know it's been all over the place in the past, but we're trying to elect in the new year so we can stay on track with switching it out. The chair or the co-chair attends full meetings, these meetings in person. Also trying to attend the RSA users group meetings. Those are in February, May, August, and November. They're quarterly to share a database committee update, and that's really short. It's just a few minutes. When we do in-between committee meetings, coming here is the chair or the co-chair to help run the meeting from our training lab while the attendees are attending at their libraries or their homes. Sharing ideas for the agenda and just keeping the meeting going. So I'll let you, Jennifer, just talk a little bit about how it's been, hopefully not painful.
No, it's not been painful. Honestly, Erica does pretty much all the work. She makes the agenda, and we'll just basically ask if there's something that I know about that I would like to talk about. So you just really have to be comfortable speaking in front of a group, or, you know, willing to get through the discomfort, which is what I do. And then the user groups meetings, since they don't have that many a year, it's not bad. So, I mean, it's a way, I think it makes me be more engaged with everything that's going on, because I really do have to pay attention being the chair, which can, I mean, take a little bit of time, but it's not an overwhelming amount of time. And it's good professionally, I think, to know what's going on with everything. So I think it's been a good experience, and Erica's been is a huge help and really is very flexible and very organized. So if you're interested in running for the chair, I would do it.
Thank you. Yeah, does anyone have any questions about the chair or co-chairing? Okay. So for the secretary, again, this is a one-year term. There's no term limit maximum with elections, again, trying to be in January just so we can keep our clean slate every year. Attending the full meetings, these meetings in person, taking the notes for these meetings, but not for the in-between meetings, so shorter meetings. This is the part where I know sometimes on my end I'm not very good at this, so I'll acknowledge that right off. So Erin has been good about sharing the minutes with me, and it seems like I'm always rushing to get them polished and posted on our page. But we do try and get the minutes shared before the next users group. That way, as the committee chair prepares their update for the users group, they can look at the minutes. So sometimes it's a little bit last minute with everything going on here, but sharing the minutes so they can be posted on the committee page, and then also, like I said, summarized at the user group. Do you, Erin, want to share just how it's been?
Oh, it's been...
Do you want to come up here? Oh, there's a microphone right there? Okay, good.
It is not painful at all. It takes a little time to write up the notes. Taking notes is not so bad, because now that they record everything, if I miss something or I don't understand my notes, I can go to the recording and then make new notes for it and write it up. And Erica is very good at polishing, and if you don't understand Kendall's series, I just did not understand Kendall, and she can fill
You just heard his name.
Hey, Greg, good morning. That's okay, no problem.
In front.
It's like in a movie theater, yeah. The other thing I'll mention about the secretary, what we can do too, and maybe I should have offered this too, I can't remember if I mentioned this to you, Erin, but we can too, if you want to take notes electronically, we can set up a laptop for you. So if you prefer to take them electronically versus, on paper, either way is fine, but I wanted to be sure and mention that we can always set up a laptop and then you can take the notes with you either on a flash drive or email. Thank you, though, for sharing your experience with it. Does anyone have any questions about the secretary position? Okay. Oh, you want me to talk louder? Okay. Let's see. Where is my volume here? Maybe? It says I'm connected.
Oh, you need to talk louder.
I need to talk louder? Okay. Here, let's move this closer. Okay, how's that, Bobby? Is that better?
I don't think there's a way to turn it up.
I move the microphone much closer. Hopefully, though, you won't hear our papers rustling over it. There's always that chance.
Yeah, unfortunately now you're going to hear me coughing louder too, because I've got a little cold.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Can everyone in the room hear okay, too? Okay, great. So why don't we take volunteers? Does anyone want to volunteer for the chair or the co-chair? Don't all jump at once. Crickets. I should have prizes like what Martha's team's doing during her meeting. Okay, how about online? Is there any interest? Doesn't look like it.
If nobody else is interested, I'll do it, but we can wait till it gets closer to January because maybe somebody who watches this later might be interested.
Okay, so how about for the time being, we'll continue, thank you, with you continuing to serve. So we'll continue with Jennifer from Alpha Park being chair. And then when we meet in May, we can maybe ask again, like you said, maybe somebody will have thought about it. Okay. How about for secretary? Any volunteers for that? Okay. If nobody wants to do it, that's okay. We just won't have minutes. So thank you, Erin, for taking them, but I don't want you to feel pressure to keep doing it if you don't want to. But if nobody wants to volunteer, we'll have the recordings, like what Martha's committee does. Okay, so does that sound like the preferable option, just to have the recordings and do away with the minutes, or do you want to revisit a secretary in May? Let me ask this, who reads the minutes? Raise your hand if you read the minutes. Okay, so if you do. Okay, well, I think what we'll do then, we'll just do away with the minutes, and then we'll continue with Jennifer, thank you, as co-chair, not chair, chair, not co-chair. And then in May, we can revisit it if somebody maybe listens to this or thinks about doing it. So I'll leave it up to you, Erin. If you want to take minutes for this meeting, you can, or if you just want to start the new year not taking minutes, either way is fine with me.
Take them.
You can take them, okay.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. So Erin will take the minutes for this meeting. Okay. What we'll do next, moving to agenda item number 3, we'll talk about details for the Quincy Public Library migration and the accompanying bibliographic deduplication project. And then the last item, we'll talk about training and transition visits, where we are with those. So Kendall will join us up here at the presenter table, and as he does that, on our homepage we have the migration dates letter to download, and this was shared too. Kendall shared it earlier this week on the listserv, so this might be here. Thank you. And then for those in the room, I'll hand out paper copies.
And just so you know, we're going to be sending out written copies of this letter as well to each branch in RSA. We sometimes feel like once we've sent an email out, everyone knows what's happening. And then we go visit people, and they're like, oh, we don't read this. So we're sending a letter out that is exactly this same letter, just so that everybody has a printed copy in their branch. So there's an opportunity to see the data, let's say. So kind of a quick overview of what's been going on. I've been at RSA for 11 and a half years. One of the first things I did 11 and a half years ago was visit Quincy Public Library and start a conversation about, yes, we would like to join RSA, but we're not ready and whatever. So this has been kind of long in the hopper. About 2 years ago, with the Rails grants, it got a lot more serious. A year and a half ago, they said, yes, we want to do this, but we were in the middle of running through, I think, 5 or 6 new libraries at the time in RSA, and we said, you know what, this is great, but this is a big project, and we need to set aside a big chunk of our time just for you guys, where we're not trying to deal with other libraries. So, and for them, the best date to go live was actually in February. So we counted backwards from February and said, all right, starting in about June, that's when we need to start doing this work. So in June, we had phone calls. In July, we did visits at Quincy, talked through, you know, they run a Symphony system, but of course their codes are not our codes. The way they do things are not the way we do things. So we were there for 2 or 3 days talking about how we do things versus how they do things and trying to figure out an initial batch of code mappings. Then they pulled a complete copy of the Quincy database, remapped it based on the codes that we had come up with, and put it on a copy of our production server so that Quincy could look at the data and see what happened. And then we have to, of course, start tweaking everything that didn't come over correctly. That's kind of what's led up to where we're at now. Now we're at the point where we're finalizing settings and workflows, working on their circ map, working on their hold map. Quincy uses acquisitions. We don't know anything about acquisitions because nobody in RSA uses acquisitions. So trying to figure out how to set up something that we don't know how it works, and they don't necessarily know how it works, they just use it. And making sure that all of these fun little settings are configured correctly to make their library operate the way they want it to work inside of the constraints of a consortia where things don't necessarily work the same way as if you're just a single standalone library. At the end of the month, we have one more phone call with Circe Dynex to finalize all of the codes and descriptions and policies and everything in the production server. Then basically it's the first week of February, starting on February 6th, Circe Dynex is going to pull all of the Quincy data for items, bib records, things like that off of their server and start transforming all of that into RSA-specific data to put on our server. At that point in time, you will start seeing items and title records in the system that have weird numbers on them. They items with non-A barcodes. A? Yes, A barcodes. Quincy's got 200,000 something items, and because they run a Symphony system where we can do a data merge and then fix everything afterwards, it was actually an option for them to join. But one of the things they said when they said, hey, we're willing to join RSA, but we're not willing to read barcode 200,000 items, I get that. They did, however, recode all of their user barcodes for their currently active user populations. So after go live, you'll see users in the system that have big, long user IDs as well, but they're inactive and we're working on purging them and getting rid of them, because they haven't purged their users. They had no reason to, really, as a standalone system. So from February 6th to February 10th, all of that item acquisition, title record stuff will be coming over. When you guys are cataloging, make sure when you're doing your match and attach type cataloging that you choose a record with RSA libraries and not a record with just a Quincy item attached, okay? Because those all, or as many of those Quincy records as possible are going to get merged into our database when we run the dedupe after they go live. So, you know, look for records that non-Quincy libraries are attached to. Then on February 13th, which is a Monday, that's go live week, Quincy's going to stop using their system completely. So Quincy has to stop cataloging a week prior to that. They're going to stop using their system completely on Monday. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, Circe Dynex pulls all the user data, all the current checkouts, all the current holds, all the current fines and fees, the bills, all of that user stuff, transforms all of that into the new codes for RSA and puts it on our server probably Tuesday and Wednesday. And then on Thursday, the 16th, Quincy goes live. So we will have several staff members in Quincy for this event. We may have people going earlier. I think James may be headed up there on the weekend prior. I'll probably be up Tuesday or Wednesday. Martha's planning on being there. I'm not sure, Erica, if you were planning on going for Go Live, but I think you're planning to head up there earlier. Next week, Erica's headed up. So there'll be several staff members there. There's going to be tweaking that we're going to have to do to their system setup in the system. I don't know how many of you guys were here when we went live in 2007. There was significant tweaking after that. And there, I'm sure, will be significant tweaking after Quincy goes live because there are things that we can't anticipate. We don't believe that there'll be big issues for anybody else but Quincy. But that's not to say there won't be, but there shouldn't be. Thank goodness Circe is pretty good at taking a Circe system and migrating it into another Circe system. So we're pretty sure that any issues that happen are going to be specific to Quincy. So Quincy goes live on the 16th. They are closed on the 17th, and that's probably a day when we will be debriefing and fixing issues or whatever. Then on February 21st, is that a Monday?
I think it's
Is that a Monday?
Is it a Tuesday?
Monday or Tuesday, basically the next week. That's when the that's a Tuesday. That's when the deduplication part starts. So what's going to happen is Quincy's records are going to come over into our system, but they're not going to be merged with RSA records when they're brought in. Instead, it is far safer to do a system deduplication after those individual records are brought in. So in that week or so between them adding the Quincy records and or 2 weeks or however long it is, when the deduplication starts, all of Quincy's records are still going to be individual records in our consortial system. Starting on the 21st, Circe Dynex will be starting the deduplication process. This is a system-wide deduplication. It's something we've wanted to do for a while and just hadn't had the time or, I don't want to say desire, because we've wanted to do it. We haven't had the time. There hasn't been something nudging at us to really go ahead and do it. We have to do it for the migration in. There's just no other way to do it. So essentially what will happen is, starting on the 21st, they run all these reports that look at all of the, because we've already done this on our test server with Quincy's stuff several times. They run through all of the parameters that we have set up, and they bring us back a list of every match that's going to merge, everything that was close to merging, but there was something that kept things from merging, all of that. We will review all of that, maybe make a final tweak or two. I will not be in the country at this point in time. Staff will, Martha and Erica. And then finally what will happen is On the, scroll down a bit. On, oops, sorry, too far.
Oh, too far.
So, from the February 24th to March 3rd, all of those reports will be reviewed. There was 125,000 plus matches on the test server, so there's a lot to review. On March 9th and 10th, the actual deduplication will run on the system. And then everything will get merged together. So on the 9th and the 10th, what will happen is it's going to look at all the records in the system. It'll look at all the Quincy records and go, is there anything that matches this record? Yes, great. The Quincy record goes away and everything gets merged onto the RSA record. Items get merged onto the RSA records. Any holds against that Quincy record get merged onto the RSA record. And also, during the same time, it's looking for Harry Potter. How many copies of Harry Potter do we have? How many of those copies are mistakenly recatalogued where, you know, whatever happened, and now we have two exact same copies of the same thing with a couple of items on one and a lot of items on another one. If it finds one of those, the smaller record gets merged onto the larger record as well. All the holds move over to the larger record as well. So that's what will happen with that. The dates when you guys don't get to do deletions are the 21st through March 13th. February 21st through March 13th. Don't delete anything. Don't transfer things from one record to another. Because what happens is, if you delete something and that record goes away as part of the deduplication, that record could have been a master record for a deduplication. And if it runs in the one part, but then it's missing in another part, then A, it can't dedupe, and B, maybe bad things happen. We don't know. That's why they tell us don't delete anything. So don't delete anything during that time, please. There will be many emails coming out saying do not delete things during this time. You can still add stuff. You know, you can add new records, new titles, new items. You can do all of that. Just don't delete anything. Yes?
So when you say do not delete, do you mean do not delete a record, like a title? What if you accidentally create, like I've had a couple times recently where my staff have thought that their OCLC conversion didn't take, and then they ended up generating two items on the one record, but the one has like the 176143 dash whatever OCR. Can you delete that? Or
That's a good question. So those online, you actually might have heard Jennifer, but she asked if you load an OCLC record into the workflows database and there's an additional item attached with an auto-generated barcode that happened by accident. Yes, you can delete that item because you're not, it gets into the nitty-gritty, but you're not removing the record. So if it's a mistaken item like that, you can delete it, but anything else, please don't delete. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And then as far as do not attach any items to a Quincy record, is the March 13th date the same for that, where you could, after that date, attach to a Quincy record, or
that would start on the 6th.
Yeah, so February 6th is kind of the first day where you might start to see Quincy records. And I almost think, too, I don't have the login with me off the bat, but maybe we should show what a Quincy record looks like, because it's going to have a different control number, title control number on the control tab in workflows. And I almost think that that's a good point that you raised, Kendall, because even after the deduplication completes, it's not going to merge all of the Quincy records into our records. They have unique titles that will stand alone. So there'll still be some time where we're doing some cleanup to get control numbers changed. So you'll continue to see standalone Quincy records. And after the dedupe runs, though, if that Quincy record is in there and it seems to match your item, you can go ahead and attach to it because it's survived the dedupe. But what we don't want is between February 6th and March 13th. February 6th through March 13th, we don't want you attaching to Quincy records, because at that point they could be cleaned up by the dedupe process. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Oh, no problem.
That's good. Good question.
And then the final phase of the deduplication process happens on March 11th and 12th. That's a weekend. So basically what happens is, how our database works is there are many, many databases, and as we've added all these items and changed all these items, we need to go back through and completely rebuild the database from scratch rather than just adding all the change after change after change to the database. We do this normally on an overnight process because there's not that many records that change during the day, but when the deduplication happens, there are way more records that will be changing than that overnight process can comfortably handle. And there are a couple of indexes that we don't rebuild on a nightly basis that we generally don't have to touch too often, but will need to be rebuilt. So those are going to run during the day on Saturday and Sunday. These reports take 8, 9, 10 hours to run. They will slow the system down a little bit, but it shouldn't be too bad. We have run these reports during the day in the past, during school days, quote unquote, during the week. And it hasn't, nobody's complained and said, hey, workflows is not responding today. So we're hoping that, especially with the lighter load on the Saturday, that actually no one will even notice that we're doing it. But we wanted to let you know that they would be happening on those 2 days just in case it seemed like workflows was feeling a little sluggish. That could be why.
We have a question online.
Yes.
So Julia from Normal has 2 questions about the cataloging freeze. The first question, is the modified title wizard allowed to be used?
No, that's a good question. So if Normal Public is using the modified title wizard, please don't use it during the cataloging freeze.
Okay, and then her second question is, are we allowed to import OCLC records that will overlay a current records in RSA, for example, upgrading a level 8K, etc.?
Yes, that is still okay. Now, if the control number changes, that might cause a problem. But again, just in the wider scope of things, loading records should be fine because that's cataloging a new item. There might be cases, like I said, where the control number changes if it overlays, but that's okay because some of those things will just happen. But I think the bulk of the things probably will be okay.
All right. March 13th or thereabouts. Hopefully everything will be finished on March 13th. And we'll fire off an email that says, go ahead and delete everything that you've been sitting on your carts or in the back room or whatever. So wait for us to give you that email because there may be some additional cleanup reports that we had not anticipated or that took longer than we thought. So we will send out an email with much rejoicing to tell you that you can delete your items now. On or about the 15th, Quincy should move from local holds to system-wide holds filling. This is kind of the ending piece of the Quincy migration. Quincy really can't fill system-wide holds until the deduplication happens because their items don't appear on RSA records until the deduplication happens. And it's typical when we make a new library live, whether it's a union lister starting to circulate or a brand new RSA member, we generally give them about a month to get used to the process, filling local holds, that kind of thing, so that we don't overwhelm people with a whole bunch of new things all at once. Once again, when that goes, the system-wide holds for Quincy goes live, more than likely at least one of us will be out at Quincy for that day just to help with that process and any questions. We've been doing that recently, and that seems to make things move a lot smoother when that happens. Did you have a question? Or okay, I saw hand movement. I thought maybe someone had a question. Let's see, and then basically everything will be back to normal by the end of the month. And once all of that is done, then I will return from vacation. I did not necessarily plan to be on vacation a week and a half after Quincy went live or a week after Quincy went live, but when you're trying to work in a schedule of someone who's in grad school, you have a very limited window. So that was my limited window. So I will be looking at my emails when I have internet access and distributing them to people who can answer them.
Do you know off the top of your head the IP address for the Quincy migration server that we have?
It is .108.
.108, okay. I think what we'll do next, I'm going to log in to workflows. Where are my icons?
Oh, I hid them.
You hid them, okay.
Just go to the start menu.
Go to the start menu.
Yeah.
Where is it in here, Kendall?
Start all programs.
Martha, you might want the icons back for your meeting.
All
programs right here.
Yep. Scroll down and then work Cersei Dynex.
Okay. Oops.
There it is.
I've never gotten to it from there. Okay. So you said it's the .108.
.108. Yep.
Okay. 492.1.
Oh no, it's the external.
Oh.
It's the 207.
Definitely wouldn't have gotten that.
.9 164 108.
Like that.
Might be it.
Nil 3 gotcha.
Did I do it? Okay, we'll see. Uh-oh.
No, it's a little slower.
Okay.
Mostly because it has to wake up.
I'm thinking, going back to your question, Julia, that you asked from normal, I think those overlays will be fine. I was thinking about that more as I looked at the migration letter. Because we're turning off, we have a script that runs right now. If you load an OCLC record and it replaces a brief record, it flips the control from the ISB to the OCLC. So I think if you're doing over, the control number should not be changed because we've turned off that script that's off. I know I don't have it right now. I probably should be able to delete a brief record during this time? Or no. Yeah, please don't delete anything unless it's one of those goofed items with an auto-generated item ID, just to be safe, because the dedupe is going to look at brief records too and try and consolidate, if it can, those into full records.
They're having issues hearing us with the audio.
Okay.
Don't know if there's something going on with the microphone.
I think once we get
Hello, hello.
How about now? Can those online hear us? Go ahead and type in the chat box if you can hear us. That way we'll make sure. Oh, good. How's the volume? Can you hear okay online?
It's like the phone hung up or something.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, so let's try this again. So those control number edits, like I said, those will be stopped by our script that we're disabling before we do the dedupe. And then as long as nobody's using the modified title wizard. I know at normal they have special access to that wizard. As long as you're not using that to change anything, we should be good with doing those overlays.
We should be back now.
We should be back. Okay.
Yeah, well, I think everything's fine.
Okay, so what we're going to do now, Kendall logged into the Quincy migration server that we've been using internally as well as at Quincy to review how the test data moved over from the migration, both users and items. So let's find a Quincy record, and you can see how the control tab has a different type of title control number, and this is what you'll want to avoid from that February 6th to March 13th time frame, is these records are almost in limbo getting ready for a possible dedupe. Okay. Let's see what they have in Valentine's. Okay. So any of these should work, so we'll see here. Now the trick is we'll just have to get one where only they are attached. So, oh good, okay, so notice it's got the Quincy code. If we go to the control tab, all of the Quincy records that are standalone records that have moved over, like Kendall mentioned, just as they are from their database to ours, on this control tab, either in item search and display or in call number and item maintenance, either wizard, this title control number line is going to start with the QU prefix. And I think what we'll do too is make a screenshot document of this and share it on the listserv as we get close to February 6th. That way we can make sure it reaches a lot of our members. But mostly though, during that February 6th through March 13th window, we want to avoid using these as we're cataloging, because there's a good chance if there's an existing record we had, it'll be consolidated in. Now after March 13th though, if this record still stands, if it wasn't deduped during the process, you could attach to it if its description matches, just like you're used to doing here on the bibliographic tab.
Will it still begin with a QU after that date?
That's a good question. So Jennifer at Alpha Park asked if the record after March 13th, after the dedupe completes, if it'll still use the QU title control number prefix. It will. But we're working with Cersei Dynex on a custom project to flip their QU title control numbers, if it has an OCLC number here in the 001, to flip it to our prefix with the lowercase o and that OCLC number. But we were told that's going to be a tricky project for them to do, so we're not sure of the time frame. I have confidence they'll be able to get it done for us, but it's not going to be fast, so you'll probably see QU records for some time as they work through it. And of course, too, we want to be sure and test it thoroughly, too, before we run it. So that's a good question. Yeah.
As they make records into the future, will there still be no QU, or were there newer records that they create after March 13th have normal title control number, I guess?
That's a good question, too. So for those online, Jennifer asked, as Quincy creates new records and workflows going forward after the migration and the dedupe, will they still start with QU and the title control number? No, because they'll be using our database configuration, our BibLoad template configuration that will make sure their title control numbers of records that they're importing from OCLC in particular are consistent with what we're doing. So that's a good question too. I skipped you earlier, Courtney. I'm sorry. Did you have a question too?
Only kind of, sort of, with the discard user, okay, we're not supposed to use that throughout this process. I've already got records tied to that. I need to make sure those things get purged out before this party starts.
I would, yeah.
In the category of small taters.
That's a good question. Yeah, so Courtney asked from Avon, she already has some items checked out to her discard account, if she should clear them now before this starts. I would say yes. What would you say, Kendall?
Yeah, if you normally would want your discards cleared, we need to do it before February 6th. So, yeah, send James an email and he'll...
Or see him before you leave.
Yeah, and he'll clear the ones that are clearable.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there a reason that we can't use the discard user during the non-delete, because it just checks out. It doesn't actually make it go away until we tell you to go away.
Yeah, we thought about that.
We thought it'd be easier just to say no discards or deletes, but if you,
I'm fine with easy.
It's
we were trying to
less
keep it
confusing that
simple,
way.
yeah. But you could check items out to it, just don't tell us to clear it. Yeah, you
Yeah.
could check out to it. We were just trying to make it easy, but if,
Yes.
yeah, so
And
if
there's-
you want to check
In the
stuff
grand
out.
scheme of things, there are 15 to 20 libraries using discard users.
Yeah.
I think that's still the count. So it's just easier to say, don't delete
Right.
anything.
You could, though, check items out to it, and I suppose, too, even if somebody asked us to clear it, we would not do it because of this, but mostly we were just trying to get the idea across, don't discard or delete anything during this, yeah. I love catalogers. Everybody splits hairs over everything. I love it. Okay.
Did I cover what we needed to cover?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think we got to the end of that. I know your agenda disappeared.
So, Quincy's workflow.
Yeah,
That's a good
Quincy's
question,
workflow
too.
code
Yeah.
will be Quincy PL for their main branch. There will be a QU2 underscore OUT RCH for their outreach branch, because they have an outreach branch. There are 2 additional Quincy codes in the database, QU3 lockers and QU4 lockers or something like that. And essentially what it is, Quincy on the front of their building has lockers with these little digital combinations, and people can designate that as a whole pickup location. And so they would say, hey, I want to pick this up in the lockers. Then when Quincy tells them their hold is available, they say, hey, your hold's in locker 12, your combination is whatever, and then people can go pick them up. They also have a book kiosk that they're setting up in, I think it's the Country Market grocery store, and I believe lockers there as well. So you have to be able to say this is a pickup location, it has to be a library. So they're not real libraries, they're pseudo libraries in the system, but you may see a QU3 or a QU4. And that's just so that their patrons can designate, hey, I want to go pick it up over at this other place where you allow us to do that.
In terms of items cataloged in workflows, though, the bulk of them should be in the main Quincy PL code or the QU2 outreach. I know Bobby had mentioned that there's a glitch with some of their acquisitions records being put into the wrong branch, so there might be some strays, but I'm thinking it's unlikely you'll see those since they'll be acquisition items, not full records. But the bulk of what you'll see cataloged as Quincy will be in the main and the outreach branches. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Okay. If there's any staff that need to be kept in the loop who aren't getting the listserv messages and maybe aren't being shared as they come in at your library, we do have on our homepage links where staff can sign up for the RSA listserv under System Info and Support. Notice that there's links there for online and basic, so if you're unsure of your level, you can check that membership list that we just looked at for the Quincy codes, or if you just want us to sign you up, you can email the help desk and either James or Kendall will do it. But we really recommend if there's staff who need to know about each of these steps and maybe can't be kept in the loop easily, have them sign up for the listserv. That way everybody's on the same page. Okay. Okay, let's go home and we'll look at the agenda again. I think the next item is you, Kendall, so we'll go back there, but there's one other detail I wanted to mention. We're still, this agenda item 3C, priorities for cataloging and training and transition visits. We're still focusing on new and upgrading libraries, as well as libraries where there's new staff. We have several libraries that are joining RSA after Quincy, Williamsfield, Neponset, Flanagan, Bushnell, and possibly Prairie Creek are interested in upgrading. So there'll be several libraries coming up where in Knoxville, yes, they're still cataloging. So we'll continue to prioritize our new members that have new staff, and then we'll resume transitions when we can. But luckily, the tech accounts continue to work well, or if you have an individual account, keep using that too. But we'll get there eventually. Okay, now back to Kendall.
All right, so there is some interesting information we have learned about deleting items without using a discard user and your end of month statistics, which we are still looking into to see if we can prove either yes or no. But essentially what Swan thinks is happening is that items that they delete during the month do not appear in their end of month statistics, which makes sense because
using the delete wizard.
Yeah, using the delete wizard, because if you delete something, things attached to it go away. I'm not 100% sure that's true in all of the products, but I think it probably is true in Symphony. Apparently, they have, some of their larger libraries have daily newspapers that they circulate and then delete very quickly, and so they're seeing their cert counts not being correct in certain location codes type of things or for certain item types, and that's how they noticed it. So we're looking into this and trying to see, is it just in Symphony? Does it also do it in analytics? Things like that. But it's basically one more reason why, personally, I think it would be a good idea if everybody just used the discard user instead of deleting things manually. There are consortia in other parts of the country / world that don't allow people to do anything but use a discard user. We're not there, of course, but we're looking into this. As we find out more, we'll let you guys know. And also, probably we need to put out the information on how to set up discard users again. And we're also looking at, I see people smiling and laughing, and we're also looking at, for those libraries that want it, just automating that whole process to remove that, hey, clear my discards user. Elizabeth.
I just want to say, be aware that it will really improve your monthly statistics because they count as a checkout. So unless you run another report and take them out.
In workflows, yes. Now we can take those things out, and in how many things are you deleting a month?
Well, when I went through the juvenile nonfiction,
okay.
That's how I noticed.
Yeah,
I'm like,
that one
I
big
checked
month.
out 400 things in juvenile nonfiction. No way, my kids have never checked out that much stuff. And I went, oh.
Yeah, that's right.
So then I have my reports. And when I do magazines, it also pops up there.
So anyway, so that's just kind of in the back of your minds. If you don't have a discard user, I personally recommend using a discard user just because it saves you time.
Oh yeah, it's really easy.
You have a barcode on a piece of paper sitting on your desk. You want to get rid of an item, scan the barcode. From your point of view, it's gone. Just throw it away. And then when you tell us to clear the discard users, how the system works is the system goes, is this item clean, quote unquote, can it be removed? If it's clean, and there are several things that the system looks at to say if something is clean or not. But if it's clean and it can remove it, it will remove it. If it's not clean, if there's a bill or something like that attached, I forget all of the variables, it'll just stay in the system, but in the discard location so that it's hidden from patrons and all of that stuff. And when it eventually becomes clean, then it gets removed from the system at point X in the future. But for you guys, instead of going through and going, oh, here's the thing, now I've got to load a wizard, then I've got to discard, and as you can tell, I don't ever delete things, so I really don't know how that works. But they don't trust me to delete anything, which is probably wise. A discard user is super simple because it's one click of your scanner and the thing is gone. So from your point of view.
At Alpha Park, it also really simplified things for us to do it because before we used the discard user thing, they had to manually keep on paper every time they deleted something and if it was a duplicate item or not for the end of the month stats.
Oh,
and now I can generate reports and do it without every staff member having to do tally marks.
Yeah, and that is, so the comment was that by using a discard user, you don't have to keep things on paper because we can't report on something that's been deleted. But if you check everything out to a discard user and then say, hey, on the last day of the month or the first day of the next month, can you send me a list of all the titles that were deleted? We can do that if you use the discard user. And then we would, discard them after that, which is why currently if you use a discard user, we don't just automatically clear your discard user because we're not sure what reporting you want on those things. And so we wait for you to tell us to clear them. Eventually, I think what we would like to move towards is just a standardized kind of, if you've set up a discard user and it's okay with your library, we will run all the reports on the first of the month, and then on the second of the month, we'll run the discards. So that you would get the list of all of the things that you checked out to the discard user on the first day of the month, and then on the second, we would just wipe everything out.
Can I get signed up on that right now, please?
We will use you as a guinea pig.
I don't know if I'm necessarily the best one to do that.
That's fine. That's okay. Teeny weeny guinea pigs work just as well as more chunkier guinea pigs. Send James an email. Because if you send it to me, I'm just going to forward it to James. So it's cut out the middleman. Is there anything else on there for me? Does anyone else have a question before I disappear into my hobbit hole? No? Thank you for coming out. Enjoy your day.
Thank you, Kendall.
You're welcome.
Do you need the computer? You want to switch spots?
I don't need it.
Okay.
I took some notes. I wrote down. I should have printed it out for everybody though. Yesterday, all this week has been hectic though. Monday was a holiday. Yesterday was busy.
Okay, so I think we're at 4B. We'll talk about Alpha Park's procedure for recataloging on-the-fly brief items.
So on-the-fly brief items are basically when a patron brings an item up to CERC and it's just been dropped from the catalog. And you can tell it's been something that's checked out like 1,000 times, well, not 1,000 times, but many times. It's an older item, but for some reason it just does not come up. So at CERC, they just make a brief record for it really fast so they can check it out to the patron. Well, unfortunately, when they do that, it makes a home location of cataloging, and when it has cataloging for the location, it won't let you put a hold on it. So what we've been doing is I had Rails set up a weekly brief record report that I get every Monday. And then I give it to my staff member, Marla, and she goes into each item and changes in the drop-down box, cataloging to a different location. And it really doesn't matter what you change it to because this record's going to be going away anyway. And then once she changes that location, she can put a hold on the item. And then we wait for the item to come back to tech services and look for a good record, just like if it were a new item. So it's really easy, and it makes it so that those items don't end up kind of out there in limbo with a brief record for no reason. So it's worked for us really well, and I think the key part of that, and you wouldn't have to do it every week if you didn't want to, is getting that report from Rails. And basically I have it set up so they give me a list of just the brief records that were created the previous week. But you could do it like the previous month if you preferred not to have to handle it every week. And we usually sometimes there's nothing on the list. Every once in a while there'll be like 1 or 2 items. So it's not something that really takes very much work, but it does make our brief record list a lot smaller by doing this consistently. Does anybody have any questions?
If you'd like to set up something similar to what Jennifer's describing, I think I'm going to try and open a new tab here. Remember, we have the report request form. So if you'd like our help setting up a weekly or a monthly brief record report, I know some of you in the room, we've done that as part of the cataloging transition discussion. But if you're not sure if you're getting a monthly brief record report, or maybe you want to increase the frequency to weekly to help keep track if your library does these on-the-fly items, remember on our RSA support site under the quick links on the right, there's a report request form. And I think the option you'll probably want to use if you want this type of report, if you scroll down on the form, where it asks what type of report request is this, you can pick the specific report request. I know exactly what I want. Maybe you don't know what it's named, but you could say that you want a report of brief records in the last week or the last month coming on a recurring basis.
If you ask for just brief records, you're going to get a giant, well, maybe not a giant list, but like a much longer list. That's why I said that just for that time frame.
Yeah. Makes it more palatable
Yeah.
to tackle versus a huge list. Okay. Yeah. Were there any questions about that? Okay. Thank you. We're going to shift seats, and I'll let Miranda show you a new sheet. Don't mind my stuff on the floor.
Oh, okay, I'll try not to.
There's not much table space.
Liza's handing out print copies of this handout sheet. Yesterday, I taught the basic cataloging class for the first time, and for that class, I created this one-page front and back handout that just has some key takeaways for things that you can learn in the class and just sort of reminders. And you can find this handout on our RSA support site under Workflows, Documentation, and Training, Cataloging, and Cheat Sheets. And you can see it's the Workflows, Basic Cataloging, Key Takeaways. So you can see it's just a few reminders on the front here in pretty blue boxes that like reminders to what the top match points are when you're looking at a bibliographic record, what encoding levels to look out for when you're cataloging and workflows, reminders not to attach to another library's brief record. And on the back of the page, I have listed helpful links for people who are cataloging at the basic level and provided links to each of them where you can find the full cheat sheet on our website. And I use the Google shortener, so it's shorter to type in if you have the print copy. Or if you're looking at the sheet from our website, you can actually click the links from the PDF, and it'll open up the full cheat sheet for you. So if I have extra print copies too, if you would like to take some back for your staff members who might find this useful. Does anyone have any questions about this cheat sheet? No? I hope you guys find it useful. So.
So next up, Liza will talk to us more about preferring Library of Congress records when cataloging.
Okay, let me get to the online. Where's our homepage? There. No, that's not what I want.
Try going, maybe to the second one and then go back, maybe.
There it is.
Okay. It's easy to get lost.
Yeah.
There's so many pages.
Okay, so this handout is located under Workflows, Documentation, and Training, and then under Cataloging and Cheat Sheets. And then you scroll down a little ways and you find Cataloging Best Practice, Prefer Library of Congress Records when cataloging. Now this is just really a reminder for many of you. When you're cataloging in Workflows and you come across a record that has two records, like you've put in your ISBN and two records come up. This is just a reminder to pick the record that has DLC in the 040. That means it's a Library of Congress record. Even though it's a level 8, we want you to prefer that record and send us a cataloging request form so that we can update the record to a full record in Workflows. On this sheet that Miranda handed out and that we've got on the screen here, I also have the duplicate record that is a level I, but you'll also notice in the 040 there is no DLC. So we want you to prefer the record with the DLC. If there are duplicate records like this, also send us a notice through the help desk that there are duplicate records so that we can also merge them. Because while this might get cleared up during the dedupe, we also want to do we'll do it manually as well. If you guys happen to notice it, we will certainly clean those up. Are there any questions?
Oh, Erin?
Okay, it's on level 8. Do you want us to export it and then tell you to clean it up when we have it in RSA?
Okay, I'm actually going to talk about that,
that thought, yeah.
next. This is just Workflows part. There is a whole other thing that I'll talk about for connection.
Like Liza said, though, if you're noticing these duplicates, if you could just send a quick email to the help desk with the title and the ISBNs of the duplicates. We're planning to do this deduplication project through Cersei Dynex annually, but there's always going to be, like Liza said, things coming in that need to be cleaned up. So if we can help it sooner than that annual dedupe, make it cleaner for searching and cleaner for holds, let's do it. But you're right, some of these might be resolved, but if we see it, we're glad to fix it.
Right, and it's just that much faster that it's less confusing for patrons when they're looking something up and they see multiple records for the same item.
Thank you.
Okay.
That's okay. Hi, everyone. I just want to talk about individual cataloging logins. We had some issues with people using their individual cataloging logins as a way to check out materials. So in order to stop that, I'm working on going into Workflows and barring those accounts and putting a note on the account so that they can't be used to check out materials. So let me show you an example of what one of those accounts look like with the note on it.
Oh, we're in the Quincy server.
Oh, so that was not going to help me.
Yeah. It did start up fast, though, so if you need to log into the live one. And then all programs.
All programs and the thingy, and then to Cersei Dynex.
It's a long way to
Yes.
Oops. Go ahead and hit cancel. Yeah, it's like autopilot, isn't it?
I know. It's like, okay, I'm doing this. Which ones are?
So we'll go to RSA, ALS,
Okay,
RSA
that one.
network. Yeah. I'm thinking it's going to be, faster than the test one.
Did I get yours wrong?
Oh,
it's underscore.
Underscore, yeah.
There we go. All right, so this is what it looks like when the item is, or when the account is barred. You'll notice it says status is barred, and then here at the notes it says do not use for personal or tech services checkouts.
and I'll have a note from who put that note on the account on it. Is there any questions about this?
Thank you, Rebecca. I know you suggested the note last time. Thank you. And then Martha helped us with the BARD idea. So we appreciate trying to make these accounts more streamlined, and it'll actually help too once Rhonda edits all these accounts. It'll be one less thing we need to track internally with Miranda right now. She's keeping an eye on this weekly. So once we get all of these accounts edited in the coming weeks, it'll help us too internally, and then also too on your end. So we appreciate the feedback to try and get
everybody's
reworked.
account that has a.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
For a second, I was relieved you didn't start out with AP because I'm like, listen around.
No, I was looking for the easiest one to remember. So.
Okay.
And one that already had it barred because I just got the project, so I'm just starting to work on it.
So
Yeah.
the bar doesn't mean anybody necessarily.
No, it doesn't mean anybody's in trouble or anything. We're just barring it so that someone can't say circulation looks up. You don't have your card, you don't hand them your card, and they check out to you, but they accidentally choose your cataloging account instead of your regular library account, and they check out to it, and this way it won't let them check out to it.
I always worry that's going to happen because I work at Apple Park, but my card is William Evans. So if they type in my name,
They might see Alpha Park and think that that's
the one.
account. Yeah.
So this will stop that.
Okay.
Yeah, nobody's in trouble, and the account will still work the same. So you'll still be able to use all the cataloging module wizards, all the circulation wizards. It'll just be that detail of using it to check out items to yourself that won't be able to happen anymore. Our last item in this workflows section, I'll see if I can get back to the agenda. I wanted to give you an update where we are on the annual bibliographic records for high volume serials. I've gotten a couple questions, so I wanted to give you an update on that. Let's see, I think, Miranda, would you be willing to hand out my handouts for me? Thank you. So I made a revised version of this handout. As you might expect, thank you. These records are not ready yet with everything else going on here with Quincy and the dedupe, but we will get to this. This is a priority once these larger projects are out of the way. So the updated handout on this way, if you need to share it with other colleagues, I know sometimes it's circulation staff or colleagues even in reference in other departments that might catalog magazines that might not be cataloging staff. We have on our support site, thank you, under workflows, documentation, and training, under cataloging, I posted this handout under guides and how-to since it's multi-page. This is a call number and item maintenance task, these magazines, so I went ahead and put it under the workaround procedure right now. And this is for those libraries that are cataloging people, time, magazines with lots of issues in the call number and item maintenance wizard. So if your library uses the serial control module, you're not affected by this problem from our update over a year ago in December 2015. But let's take a look at the proposal again for what we're planning to do. And I actually think the timing of this will work well because we'll have the deduplication and the Quincy migration. Those projects will be out of the way. And I'm planning a visit with my team to the SWAN staff that uses this annual bib record approach for high volume serials. And I know they use the serial control module, so we plan to explore more fully how it affects serial control libraries. But for those libraries that just use call number and item maintenance, there'll be individual records. So we have a list here. You've seen the list before, I know, at our September meeting, but there's been a couple requests to add additional titles, so I put those in red for National Geographic and World. But there'll be individual records for each year for those high volume serials. That way it'll make
not only cataloging much easier, you won't have that complex workaround procedure, but also too, it'll really help with searching and display in the RSA CAT for your patrons, because I know there's quite a lag right now if you try and look up one of those records in the RSA CAT. So we still have, remember, our example and workflows just so you can see how this would work. I know Newsweek is the example, so we'll take a look at that. So here it is, and I think actually somebody might have attached, no, oh, Galesburg has, okay, yeah. So you're just a step ahead of us at Galesburg. It looks like they've attached some 2016s to it even. But what we're doing is essentially closing these high volume records after a year. So notice in your date 1 it's 2017, and then further down in the record we're trying to indicate that it's 2017 only. In the title is what we thought would be the best place to do that. So this will be coming. I just wanted to reassure everyone, but for the time being, continue the workaround procedure, and then we're going to, like I said, work with Swan to figure out how this might affect serial control libraries. What we might do initially, just to get this started, is have the serial control libraries just continue on the composite, the large records, until we can get that piece worked out. Because I know how frustrating it is to try and do that workaround for some of these magazines, so that might be the approach, is to get the serial control piece figured out a little bit later, depending on what Swan staff shares with us. But starting this, like I said, this is a priority for the summer once these big projects are out of the way and some of these new RSA libraries we talked about are up and running. Yep, question.
So the non-high volume ones are going to stay the same?
That's a good question, yes. So Jennifer at Alpha Park asked for those online. If it's not a high volume serial, if it's not on the list, you'll continue to use a composite record with all of the issues attached for all of the years. That's a good question. So we're only doing this for select magazines, and we'll double check too, because I think analytics has the capability to possibly generate reports based on the number of volumes attached to a record. So I'd like to do another check to see in analytics if there's more serial format records that have more than, you know, a couple hundred items attached. So there could possibly be more additions, but you're right, this won't affect all serials. The other piece too that's important to keep in mind, that's mentioned on the cheat sheet too, we're not going to be going back and doing this retrospectively for previous years. We know that you tend to keep magazines just for maybe 2 or 3 years at the most. If it's some of these popular titles, maybe you even just keep a year. So we think that a lot of these older issues will just work their way out through your natural deselection process. But going forward though, since this bug from the workflows update just over a year ago doesn't seem to have a fix anytime soon, we'd like to help you with your newer high volume serials. So if any staff do magazines at your library, do magazine entry, and they're not at the meeting and they've been wondering what's going on, please share this handout with them, and if they have any questions, have them get in touch with me. I know I talked to a staff member at the Morton Library who doesn't really do cataloging, but she does do magazines, so sometimes I know it's not necessarily us in the room. Okay. Okay. I think we're at a good spot. If we take another look at the agenda, I think we're at a good spot to take a break. So why don't we reconvene? I have 10:47. Why don't we reconvene a little bit before 11? And then we'll start with agenda item 5 for OCLC cataloging.
Let's see. People coming up here again still, I think. Yeah, this is good timing because I'm having a staff meeting tech services staff meeting here next week. So now I've got a lot of stuff to discuss with them besides what I already had internally. We might have a 3-hour meeting.
I know sometimes our team meetings end up that way because our schedules are all so busy that it's hard to find a time. So ours are usually 2 hours ourselves.
Yeah.
I am around We'll see if our timer does the trick again.
Hello. Okay, so there's an I in Worcester. It's there's nothing. Sometimes we have to slide. Yes. Yes. This is only when Yes. All in calls.
Hi, Liza. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Which is on the 3rd. We just went and looked and there was some way to set up.
How are your kids doing? The sitting room was out. Yeah, it was going to go back to school. Thanksgiving was, I asked him, I was like, no, put about me all day. He actually told me what some of the things that this degree is good for, and I was like, oh, okay, I didn't even know that was a thing. So it was interesting. I had a geology report. I just found various things. It's interesting. Sierra's at ICC taking 2 months before she moves on to, she's doing that veterans she wants to do, which I'm very relieved about, because at first it was psychology.
Yes, it did.
No, because she wanted to go into social work, and I don't think she's geared for social work. Not, she's too old. So
Yeah, so like I said,
so when she decided, that came back to me. So yeah, I was like, yeah, so you know, Sierra's living with her dad, and Tony's living with his current. Yeah, he's over by WD. He's over there. So, and Sierra comes over once a week. Sometimes she'll stay the weekend or whatever. But I'll live in the same.
Oh, are you going, Tracy?
Yes, I'm crazy.
Are you turning?
Not yet.
Not yet. I pushed it and I didn't know, really didn't find anything on the agenda. So
Okay, sure.
it's regarding more search.
Yeah, I know.
Well, they're continuing the first search program, you know that, right? So they're not getting rid of it.
But if you didn't have a date list.
A yard if I want to have my girls.
Yeah, you can continue using the current first search. I admit I haven't been keeping up on it. Probably like it should be, but I noticed as I registered, there's some webinars coming up on first search in February, that they're sharing, OCLC sharing an update. on where they are in the development, and then showing some of the new
It's
search
very
techniques.
exciting.
I'll make a note, I'll share it with those webinars. That would be the best place. Your other option is just give OCLC support a call or email them and ask specifically what the time frame is. Their website's a little bit convoluted, so I think it might be easier just to ask directly what's, you're wondering what the timeline is for them rolling out that new interface for it. Is that what you're wondering? Okay, because first search is continuing. It's mostly a staff interface, but then on the patron side of that is called discovery.
Will still be.
Cuts down on my drive.
Search, right.
Oh, see, we were on.
It's just.
We were on.
No, OCLC is continuing it. Yeah, I'm so glad that you're happy about it. Yeah. Yeah.
It was exciting to like moving.
No, this is for staff, right? You don't let your patrons use first search.
Yeah.
Right?
No, but our staff.
Your staff, okay, just your staff, okay. No, first search on what OCLC is doing, there was a lot of pushback when OCLC said they were getting rid of it in favor of discovery services. And so what OCLC did, this was probably in the last year or so.
Well, I didn't know that was
Trying to find this.
First search is
For staff.
It's like you could share it with patrons, but it's intended as a staff interface. OCLC is revamping it. So it's not
Excuse me, I don't know where his brother
Before an alley person has
Yeah. I think
Staff are using it.
I'd like
patron.
So they're gonna have to take that away, or are they gonna, it's no longer be functional?
Yeah, no, it's typically
They won't want to get rid of
Okay.
sent them everything and they.
Well, maybe you need to explore that first search. OCLC is marketing first search, it's the library staff side. But I suppose you could share it with patrons.
I was really worried.
Okay. See, the patrons are supposed to use discovery, which it sounds like your tech people don't want to get configured. Okay. I almost would suggest. Well, yeah, because I thought first search was going that way. But no, first search is continuing.
It's just different.
I just wonder if that's going to have to be posted on your website, this new revamped first search that they're doing. So it is going to be. Well, yeah, next month there's webinars, but I don't know anything about the timelines for when it's actually available. I haven't been keeping up with that. I think it has a different shape. One of my, yeah. I did a couple of the webinars that are coming up, so you can get this, and then you can. Okay, so you're keeping it better than I am. I was like, I would still, after you just do a webinar related to introduce yourself to it, I would still call this the support and see. Yeah.
Questions?
Yes. I just don't know about time frame. Well, it is. Yeah, no, it's continuing. Yeah.
Because we were.
Yes, you just have to create one.
It was going to make completely. Yeah, well, that was initially the plan, but there was
Think there
pushback.
is? Let's go back to Mark. No, I don't. I just clear them.
Yeah, I'll take out those webinars and see if we can do those, and then like I said, I would just post you and ask, our tech people to should be available to patrons, and then they can but you
Get through.
Stupid question on the magazine thing. When the 17 records do finally go live, will we need to worry about backing up? We've already got January most of the way gone. We need to worry about backing up, pulling those records off of the original.
Oh, I meant to mention that. Yeah, I'm glad you asked. So I'm thinking, like I said, it's
Or
going
is
to
it
be
gonna happen in this
mid-year or later this year, and we're going to actually on our end transfer
Okay.
anything that you've put in. This is another reason I didn't want to start this, because with the dedupe, if we started this, we couldn't transfer your stuff. So
No,
yeah,
it's
I'll
okay. I just
mention
wanna
that
make
after
sure
the
that I
break.
didn't
No,
have-
we would transfer what you've put in.
Okay, so it's not something I'd have to manually
Right.
sit and
Right. We'd want you
Screw
to check it, of course, but you wouldn't have to be the one moving it. Yeah. You have so many good questions. Don't preface it
I
with.
feel like, you know, what I run into in my little
No,
tiny
I think a
spaces,
lot of your questions.
a lot of stuff, you know, these guys are not gonna see. It's not gonna happen, you know.
I don't know about that. I think there's some parallels between.
I'd be real surprised. There's
Like
only,
the-
we're both all libraries.
the-
That's about as far as it goes, it seems. All right.
Well, they still, yeah, I think that's a good point, though.
Yep.
Not going on for in person, because I
Not much. I haven't moved.
which is out there.
You find something?
Excuse me.
I was looking for a long time. This goes till what?
I was on Facebook and you moved.
No. I meant this meeting goes till about noon.
Noon, yeah.
And then the next one's after 1.
Yes.
So we have to do the 1. Okay.
That's a long bell. Okay.
Done now.
So where you at now?
And Peoria.
Okay, so I think we'll get started again with agenda item 5, the OCLC cataloging. But I did want to follow up before we jump into the OCLC section. Courtney from Avon had a really good question during the break about the annual serials project. And it was a detail I meant to mention but didn't. So let me backtrack here to that serials cheat sheet. So we'd like to do this, like I said, in summer or later this year, get this started. And once we get those 2017 records built, RSA will move any existing 2017 magazines that you've cataloged on those big composite records. We'll take care of moving them for you once the 2017 records are ready, and then we'll just ask your help going forward as you put in new 2017s to use the annual record. So that's an important piece since we're probably going to start this, mid-year. We would take care right here where it says RSA's next steps on the second page. We'll transfer 2017 holdings that are attached to the comprehensive records to the applicable annual records once they're ready. So that was an important detail I skipped over. Thank you. Okay, so if we take a look at the agenda again, a couple topics here that I think are really relevant for OCLC cataloging. I know last time these got sidelined during our meeting. The first item I wanted to bring to your attention, and let me go back here. I didn't print copies of the Connection Client User's Guide and the Connection Browser User's Guide, but I posted in each of those User's Guides, and I think I'll take a look at the Connection Client Guide that's posted from the home page under the training documentation. It's under Connection, and then the Client. I posted in the user guide both for the client and then also too for the browser. We have a revised batch loading schedule. Partially due to the Quincy Public Library migration and also the deduplication project. And then we also too have just some months where our batch loading service, the Mark of Quality or TMQ, they take a break from doing the holdings updates. So in the user's guide, whether it's the client version or the browser version, depending on which version of OCLC you use, there should be a section about updating holdings. So we're taking your holdings and workflows, what you've added, what you've deleted, and syncing them up to OCLC WorldCat through this Mark of Quality company. We do that every month except in March because that's when the dedupe is going on. Remember, that's February 21st through March 13th, so we definitely don't want holdings updated during that. Even though the market quality people thought it'd be no problem to do an update during that, Martha told them, thankfully, no, it's not a good idea. And then the months that are scheduled is skip months with a markup quality in which we don't update holdings, May, September, and December. So your holdings in workflows, if what's been added, what's been deleted, it should show up fairly promptly in OCLC WorldCat, especially if you're doing those WorldShare interlibrary loan requests. But just keep in mind for March, May, September, and December, we won't do holdings updates, so there'll be a delay between the time you catalog in workflows and when that holding is visible in WorldCat. Okay. Any questions about that? Okay. The other thing I wanted to be sure and mention, I posted on the listserv, I think a few weeks ago, and you might have seen this too and might have already done it. In July 2016, OCLC released the Connection Client 2.63 update. Did anyone go ahead and update to Client 2.63? Okay, normal. Did it go pretty easily there? Good. The Connection Client 2.63, all of the procedures will be the same. Your templates will move over when you upgrade the client. Your settings should move over. I have some guides here that I'll hand out and show you here in a minute how to do the installation. The only thing is, though, if you have Connection Client already on your computer, they ask that you uninstall it before you install the new version, just like you've done with previous installations. That ensures it goes a little bit more smoothly. This update, like I said, it doesn't affect procedures, what we do in it. The only thing that it really seemed to enhance was Unicode display for foreign language records. So you might see more character sets displaying correctly, more likely more closely resembling the actual native language versus some kind of Romanized form. So other than that Unicode update, there's really no change to the client, but they just have you update no later than February 28th. Because starting on March 1st, if you have an old version of the client, it won't let you log in. So I think I'll have you, Jennifer, if you want to hand out. These look worse than they are because they have screenshots. I told my team we weren't going to do screenshots again, but I started to do it just on my own computer, and I thought we'll go ahead and do it. So this first document is an upgrade guide. So this would be if you already have the connection on your computer and you need to install the new version. So if you have an existing. So raise your hand if you need this version. Okay, and then for those online. So for those online, if you're using OCLC Connection from the home page, if we go to OCLC training documentation, and then connection, and then the client. So notice right here under procedures, there's the upgrade guide. This doesn't affect you if you're using Connection browser because that's web-based, so there's no client to update for that. The other thing I'll mention, and I thought of Pekin right away when I read this, but I know you've got better computers, so but it doesn't work with Windows XP. So if you still have Windows XP at your library and you try and install the Connection Client 2.63, it won't work. So I wanted to be sure and mention that. I know that was a huge struggle there for a while at Pekin, and maybe some of our other members too are having trouble with XP and the compatibility of different software programs. Okay, I do have copies too of the download guide, which is posted right below the upgrade guide on the connection client page. The download guide is similar, but this is if you're installing connection client on a computer that doesn't have the client on it already. So it's truly a fresh installation. Does anyone need a copy of that document? Okay, I feel like everybody in the room and probably online too, you probably have the old client right now and need to upgrade it. So that upgrade guide is the best way to do that. If you have trouble, I know the upgrade guide is detailed, but I would recommend contacting OCLC. They know a lot more about the problems with it than I do. And the last detail I'll mention about both the upgrade and the download guide, I showed the process in the Chrome browser. So if you do it in a different browser, pull the client installation package and start to download it, it might work differently depending on your browser that you're using. So just keep that in mind as you work through the document. And there'll be another reminder or two on the listserv to get your client updated. Before we push forward with the next agenda item, does anyone have any questions? Okay. So we'll flip back to Miranda.
All right, I'm going to show you how to check for OCLC system alerts. Some of you, if you were trying to catalog yesterday morning, you may have noticed that OCLC was down briefly. So if you go to oclc.org/support/systemalerts.en.html. That is not the page we were supposed to go to, sorry. Here's system alerts. Okay, and you can bookmark this page. I have it bookmarked on my computer. There should be a way for you to subscribe to receive system alerts in your email. It's supposed to be right here. They changed it on me since this morning. But one thing you do want to take care of, a couple months ago, there was OCLC system alerts that were being sent out to the email, and for some reason they were going to my spam folder. So if you know that you have subscribed to these system alerts in the past and for some reason you're not receiving them, double check your spam folder. You may have to add the system alerts as an approved sender. It depends what kind of email setup you have, how that works. And we do have a guide on our site for how to find the system alerts. You can also check system alerts from within Connection. Yes. Okay, and it's under the Help menu. Help menu, useful web links, and OCLC system alerts. And then that takes you back to that same page. So does anyone have any questions about checking OCLC system alerts? And you can see here, resolved, that was where services went down yesterday. I never saw the alert go out that they were down, but they did send out alert that they were back up again. So one time the whole OCLC system went down and I could not even get to the system alerts page, but usually you can get here and check and see if it's a problem that they're aware of. So yeah. Yes. Yeah, you know they're down when you can't even get to the system alerts page to see that they're down. So there we go. Oops.
I wonder if it's just a different browser, and maybe that's why it
Maybe,
didn't show up.
yeah, I don't.
It was just there. That's so weird.
Yeah, there's supposed to be a box where you can put in your email to subscribe to get those alert emails.
Maybe that part's broken.
Maybe it hasn't come
It
back
did go
up.
down yesterday, so maybe it was screwed up this one. Okay, I'm back to talk about, what am I talking about? Encoding level 8 records, part 2. This is, yeah, Aaron's question. This is relevant to people who do connection cataloging. If you just do workflows cataloging, you can ignore this part. This handout that Miranda is handing out right now is located under OCLC training documentation, connection, connection client, and then scroll down to under cheat sheets, and it's cataloging best practice working with encoding level 8 records in OCLC connection. Okay, so what we have here on this handout are 3 of the main scenarios you're going to run into. You will run into others, but these are the 3 main ones. When you're in OCLC connection and you come across a level 8 record, such as here, it best matches your item, the next step is to make sure that you've checked workflows to see if this same OCLC record is already in there. And the way you do that is you check the title control number, which is here in workflows. You match this number in connection to this number in workflows. It's the 001. And if they're the same, you can then attach to the record in workflows, because as you'll notice, this is already upgraded to an I. You don't have to send us a cataloging request or anything. Just attach your record, you're good to go. So that's scenario 1. Scenario 2 is if the record that you found in OCLC connection is already in workflows, because you've compared the 001, the title control number, but it's still an 8 in workflows, then you can still attach to it, but make sure that you send us a cataloging request so that we can update that in workflows to a full level record. And most of you do that, so you're all good. This is really just a reminder. And scenario 3 is what Joanne was asking me. If you find the level 8 record in connection, but you don't find any match in workflows, actually this isn't what Joanne asked me, I'll get to that. If you find the level 8 in connection, it's not in workflows, go ahead, bring it in, attach your item, but still report it to us with a cataloging request so that we can update it. That's Aaron's question. Now Joanne's question, this is not on the worksheet, but I'm going to mention it because Joanne asked. If you go to workflows and you find that level I, it does not have that DLC in the 040, so it's not a Library of Congress record, and then you go to connection and there is no other match other than that, go ahead and attach to it. That's just fine. We have no problem with non-Library of Congress records if that's all that's available.
And they don't make records.
Yeah, they don't make all the records. So it could even be something that we made here as an original record, and it's not going to have DLC because we're not Library of Congress. But I hope that is clear to everyone, probably to everyone here, because I believe everyone here does these things. So does anyone have any questions? Other scenarios you'd like me to go over? If you ever have a question, you can always send us a question in the RSA help desk, and we'll be happy to help.
Before you go, this is my question about the level 8 records. If you go into the chat box, Beth from Lily M. Evans provided the link to subscribe to the OCLC system alerts. If you go down, keep going down. See where it's flashing?
Oh, there.
You gotta go down to the bottom and just up one.
Dude.
That is such a good librarian.
There we go.
And if you want to click on that link, we can show them that that's
Where they moved it.
where you would subscribe to the system alerts.
There we go.
Other stuff.
They change things all the time.
That's crazy.
Okay.
Now we're moving on to 5E with Rhonda.
Yeah.
Just in case the people online.
Okay. I'm coming to you with a tip for when you do your searches in Connection Client for batch searches. Our suggestion is to change your default index for Connection Client, and you'll see on page 22 of the Connection Client User's Guide where that is at. And you'll notice it'll come up, it'll have this box and it says use default index. In order to change that, some people might have other indexes to search with, but standard number will bring up if you search by ISBN or ISSN, or even if you search by UPC codes from movies. So in order to change it, you just go in, you bring up that batch search box, and you just change your index number or index, and that'll save. The next time you go into batch search, that will be there. Okay, does anyone have any questions about that? You can find where this is at in the OCLC Connection Guide User's Guide that Erica has made. It's on page 22, 23. All right. No questions? All right, thank you.
Okay. So we'll go back here to the agenda. Okay, so our last topic in OCLC cataloging is, and this actually started back in March. It was one of the agenda items we didn't get to in a previous meeting. And you might have seen this posted too on the OCLC Cat listserv if you see that. OCLC has started systematically walking through the WorldCat database with an algorithm, removing the general material designator. So I posted under our meeting resources some more information about this. So if I go to the home page and then go to RSA board committees, groups, and then the DB management committee, if I go down towards the bottom, a lot of the links we've been talking about are posted here today, but notice we've been trying to show you where they're posted on the regular page, since sometimes these go away. So notice I posted down here the OCLC RDA policy statement regarding the general material designator. So highlights from this, because it is a little bit long, it has some sections here, but what you need to know in particular about the GMD. So when RDA really was first up and coming in 2013, there was a lot of anxiety, and I remember talking about it in our meetings about the general material designator going away. So let me, for those in the room, I'll have Jennifer hand out. You might have seen this cheat sheet before, but we have a cheat sheet that we like to show in the context of workflows, how the GMD looks versus the new carrier field. So let me open that up too for those online before we get too far into this. That way we'll know what we're thinking about. So back on the RSA homepage under workflows, documentation, and training, there's a cataloging link. And this one's a cheat sheet since it's not very long. It's this GMDs versus carrier types, and this is also linked under the meeting resources. So remember, this was really a topic of discussion because RDA, the new resource description and access rules, it does away with these general material designators in favor of the content, media, and carrier type in the 336, 337, 338 fields. And in workflows, that carrier type term, the format term, really the most helpful of the three. Remember, that displays in the result list in the carrier type column.
So we do have quite a few records with these GMDs though, and this is what OCLC is starting to walk through their database and get rid of. But when RDA was first implemented in 2013 by the wider cataloging community, OCLC at that time said that it had decided with the program for cooperative cataloging, really a kind of an exclusive core of elite cataloging libraries, that OCLC would retain that GMD for a period of 3 years, and that was in March 2013. So this past March, that's now expired. So OCLC, like I mentioned, is going through WorldCat, starting with the first record assigned accession number 1, walking through, if it's an English language record, taking out that general material designator and adding the content, media, and carrier fields where they can. They do say in this policy statement that sometimes, depending on the descriptive fields and the coding on the record, they might not be able to use an algorithm to assign all 3 fields, so they might add incomplete content, media, and carrier types because they would rather not add a field than guess at it if the record is unclear. But you should be seeing, I know it'll take time because there's millions of records, it seems like, in connection. It'll take time for this algorithm to move through, especially as new records are being created. I know the algorithm will also crawl those records and remove GMDs, but you really should be seeing fewer of these GMDs in WorldCat. In workflows, though, it's still going to be a mixed bag for some time, but that is one of our database enrichment priorities, is to have a similar project done where we systematically crawl the database, get the GMD taken out, and add the content, media, and carrier type, really giving us that good display with the carrier type result list that we've already started doing in workflows. So mostly I just wanted to mention that. I know everybody here is really, it seems like you're all receptive to the content, media, and carrier type, but if you are adding it either to your records in OCLC when you export them, or if you're one of those special cases that has modified title and you're putting in the GMD, I would recommend stopping, since that's being done away with in connection, and then ultimately in our database too once we start our enrichment process. So OCLC is really the pioneer, and then we'll follow suit with what they do, since they really are in line with the RDA standards. Do you have any questions about that? Okay. Let's see, the last item on here is the cataloging and the database supervisor's update. So I have another handout for this. This should be the last handout. Thank you. So this one's posted on the RSA site as well. So if I'm back on the database management committee, if I scroll down on the page, let's see, it's the third one under the January 19th, 2017 meeting, the third one from the bottom. Okay, we talked a little bit about our membership changes at the beginning of the meeting when we talked about priorities for training and transition visits. But I did want to share what's going on with the membership, because I feel like this is a really exciting time for RSA. It's a really hectic time because we have a lot of interest in members either upgrading or joining RSA. So like we talked about earlier, Bushnell Public Library plans to upgrade. Prairie Creek Public Library District in Dwight is a tentative upgrade. They're also a union list member. Right now, we have basic online members. Knoxville Public Library is currently cataloging.
these three others we mentioned earlier, Flanagan, Neponset, and Williamsfield, they are, especially Flanagan, they're chomping at the bit, ready to go. So I know once Quincy is up and running and we're settled in from that and the accompanying cleanup, I know that we're looking to get started with Flanagan, Neponset, and Williamsfield in spring or summer 2017. And I know Kendall mentioned some of those libraries too are hoping for Rails grants to join RSA, so we'll see how that works out too. Let's see, and of course Quincy that we've talked about too, with Go Live so soon on February 16th. I couldn't remember if we talked about these last time or not, but Dunlap High School did pull out of RSA due to budgetary concerns, and then Blackhawk College East Campus in Galva, they pulled out, joining the Carly Academic Consortium. This was a little bit unfair, I feel like, to give you new cataloging parameters, but we had not talked about these, I felt like, in a full year. So it's been really busy making new parameters, especially for Quincy Public Library, to make sure that the codes we have in our database will work well with their collection coming in. And then also, too, just your suggestions and your day-to-day codes that you need. So since the last time we looked at this, I think it was last January, there's been 70 new home locations. So all of these on the list are fair game. The ones that are probably most helpful if you're thinking about any of these, there's more specific codes now for displays. So if you have multiple displays, there's more codes for that. Also too, if you're kind of genrefying, is that a word? I think maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if you're breaking your DVD collection up into genres, there's some more codes for that to help with shelving. So any of these, if you're interested in using them, send a note to Amanda at the RSA Help Desk, and she'd be glad to put them in your menu. Let's see, item type. Again, this was busy too, especially since this is Kendall's least favorite code to create. But since last year, we did create 15 new codes. Several of these for Quincy, but a couple of them, I think Playaway New might have been for Galesburg, the Playaway Special for Alpha Park. So I think Equipment Networking might have been for Normal. So some of these codes might be relevant as you start to collect more formats, especially more realia, more objects. Keep in mind that there might be a code available for it. Thankfully, the item Cat 1 list is still the same, so it's still fiction, nonfiction equipment. Your category 2 is the same, adult, juvenile, young adult equipment. The category 3 with its generic format terms, those are the same. A lot of new item Cat 4 codes, again, many for Quincy, but some were suggestions from you. I tried to put these in alphabetical order so that you could more easily look at them, but a lot is on here. I was surprised, for example, we didn't have a code for murder. I guess we just put those under mystery. But there's a lot of codes here, so again, if you're interested in using any of them, please reach out to Amanda at the help desk. Item category 5, this was the top code in terms of new codes created. So there's 121 new ones since last year. So again, any of these are fair game to add to your menu. There were some new ones added for animals. I know some public libraries like to track animal type of books. Also for history. And then some more for science. So those are the ones that might be of most interest. Let's see here. I did put on the last page of this handout, there's quite a bit going on for catalogers between now and our next database meeting in May. So we do have, like Miranda mentioned, she's teaching basic cataloging workshops now here at the office. So we have those scheduled through April, but not in February, since that's going to be a crazy month with the partial cataloging freeze part of that month. So we've got basic cataloging workshops. Liza's starting to teach the OCLC Connection client workshops, so those are posted here on the sheet with the next one next Thursday. I'd like to try and keep the in-between meeting. If there's anything that I think, especially after the Quincy and the deduplication, let's try and see how those projects go. And I think that March 29th meeting for our in-between might be helpful if there's any updates that we need to share, maybe in more depth than what was posted on the listserv. So we'll just keep that date in mind if we need it. There's a couple other things on here that Rails is organizing for us that I wanted to bring to your attention. I don't think these have been publicized too much, but they are posted on L2, at least from my administrative account, but they might not be publicly visible yet. But I still thought I'd put these on your radar. So on Thursday, March 16th, it's an all-day event. It's from 8:30 to 2:30. It's a linked data summit that we're hosting a group viewing of here at our office that's coordinated by the Midwest Collaborative for Library Services. And just a little bit more about it. It's going to feature an overview and an update. It's mostly supposed to be, I think, an in-person event in Indiana. At Indiana Wesleyan University, and then also Lansing Community College. Both of those are in Indiana. But I think Rails has arranged access to this with group viewings. So the morning has this update from the Lansing campus on the Library of Congress BibFrame pilot project presented by Beecher Wiggins, who's the director of bibliographic access at Library of Congress, and then also to a presentation in the morning from the Indianapolis location from Indiana Wesleyan University that'll be delivered by Jeff Pinka. You might have heard him talk before. He is the vice president at Saphira, which is the company that's working with Circe Dynex as well as other integrated library systems to convert bibliographic data to linked data, and really a pioneer organization in the linked data effort for libraries, so he'll talk too. And then in the afternoon, there's going to be panels from both public and academic library staff about how they're preparing staff for the linked data environment. One public library from Indiana will share their experience converting their MARC data to linked data. It sounds similar, kind of what we did, but that presentation, that public library will talk about how they're attempting to measure the impact of it on their collection and its usage. Indiana State Library, I didn't know this, they have Evergreen, that open source integrated library system, and they're doing things with linked data in that Evergreen system, so they'll talk about that. And then also to a consortium in Michigan will talk about their linked data experience. So it really sounds like it'll be a full day, but really helpful information, because unlike some of the other linked data programs that I feel like have been pretty nebulous and haven't really always shown linked data in action for actual libraries, I think this summit will show how it's moving further along. So I think it's a great opportunity if you're willing to drive over. I think we'll do refreshments and kind of make it a fun group viewing. So if you're able to join us, that'd be great. Watching the Rails e-newsletter, I know Louise and Joe from the Rails CE team were just coordinating these, but they did say I could go ahead and mention it since it is posted on L2 and they're getting the details worked out. Okay, the other opportunity I wanted to mention on this last page of the handout, again, it's not widely publicized yet, but Louise said that they're, again, working on the details of it. Some of you might have visited our office. I think it was not this past May, but the May before. Lynette Fields, the Director of Technical Services at the Southern Illinois University, she's going to come back and do another RDA cataloging workshop that's from 9 to 5 on Tuesday, April 25th here at our office. Really dealing with, from what I understand, different formats of materials, really just a firm one-day boot camp on RDA. So that's something that I know Joe and Louise are working on getting put together, but that date and time is reserved in L2. So fingers crossed, we'll keep it. Okay, I think that was it from the list of events besides our own workshops and then these meetings. Before I share a few details about the Cataloging Maintenance Center and then the Rails Cataloging Working Group, do you have any questions about this handout? Okay. The Cataloging Maintenance Center is still going strong. Thank you for everybody who's been submitting, especially Galesburg. I know it's been a flurry for you, so keep submitting. I actually heard from both Sherry and then also Vince right before Christmas. Sherry said that the CMC finished. They were doing a lot of digitization work, if you remember, and that's what they told us to pull back from sending them materials. But Sherry said that they're finished with that digitization project, and that it sounds like she's pretty itchy to get special collections materials and ready to start making records again. So I know that they're really willing to get submissions and to help with that special collection cataloging. Vince also chimed in. I asked him more about specifics because I know a lot of times as you think about using that service, you want to know how it works, how long it takes. So he asked that I share that, like you've been doing, all items should be sent with an ILDS label addressed to the location that will be doing the cataloging. So whether it's Heartland at Edwardsville or Champaign, Vince is still the contact person too, so if you're thinking of sending things, start with him and then he can tell you where to send it. So you'll have that ILDS label. And then he also said, and maybe you know this, he said to include a return label so that if you send the materials, they can send it back and the label's already ready to go. He said you can send single items or a small box, but preferably no more than 20 items at a time, he said. Turnaround time, it does vary, but it's typically, he said, between 30 and 45 days, depending on how many items are in their cataloging queue. And then also, too, he was saying that some of the things that have been submitted recently, I think they're willing to take on the challenge, but he said they've been really difficult to catalog, so they take longer to do. But they are eager, like I said, for submissions, and thank you if you've already been using them fast and furious. Do you have any questions about the Cataloging Maintenance Center? Okay. The last thing I wanted to mention, if I go back a step here, back to the committee page, I did link the Cataloging Maintenance Center website. It's the same website we're all used to. I did want to give an update on the Cataloging Working Group that Rails organized through its consortia committee, which is a committee of the Rails board. Because this group, I can't share any documents because they're still in development, but I did want to share what we talked about at the meeting last Friday, because this group really is moving forward, I think, at a pretty good pace. We just started meeting in September, and we've already got documents and the discussion going. So there's a training subgroup of this cataloging working group. I think on the training subgroup, it has Carrie Halter from Batavia. It has Ann Slaughter from Rails. And then I think, too, it has, if I remember right, Barbara Mayer, who's at Northbrook, which is a member of the Cooperative Computer Services Consortium. That training subgroup, they've actually developed cataloging competencies for Rails that are very closely related to the statewide cataloging standards. So if you remember those statewide cataloging standards, it had 3 levels, and I'll show you where these are posted. They're under workflows, documentation, and training. I know that's not the best place, but if we go to cataloging, there's a policies page. There's right here the statewide cataloging standards. This document, it's worth a read if you've never read it or if it's been a while, because like I said, Rails is trying, this group, we're trying to work with what was well established at the state level rather than reinventing our own competencies, but it essentially has 3 levels of cataloging. So there's a barcode level that would just catalog in a local database. You'd be attaching to records. You wouldn't be editing anything on the record, but you'd be adding call numbers and items. So essentially our basic level of cataloging here at RSA. Then you have the copy cataloging level that's maybe making edits on the bib record in the local database, maybe going out to OCLC and searching and making edits, but not making records from scratch or deriving records. So this would be our OCLC cataloging level, this copy cataloging level. And then that final level is the original cataloging level, where you're making OCLC records from scratch, like what Normal does, like what Peoria does on some capacity for some records. So that level is truly the most advanced level, and that kind of supersedes our levels, which is fine. It's most closely related to our OCLC cataloging level. But I do see these competencies here, having knowledge of rules, search techniques. I think that these Rails competencies, while they're not finalized in any shape or form, they're going to dovetail really nicely with our RSA standards, with our existing levels. When that draft comes out from this cataloging working group, I know it first goes to the Rails Consortia Committee, and then we'll be able to share it more widely from there. But a lot of these competencies, like I said, about knowledge of rules and search techniques, it's very similar in the Rails document, but they've refreshed it in the context of RDA, and then also too in the context of linked data, and also to metadata, because we know digitization is taking more time, more effort. It's more of a focus. So you'll see these reincarnated almost into a Rails document. Another thing too that's coming out of this cataloging working group are training recommendations. There's really a push from this group, and I think this is great. This is what we need for training on MARC and RDA, possibly too on metadata schemes, to help supplement just the database specific training that we do. I think that the more training we can have, the better, because again, that ensures an understanding of cataloging principles, how it translates to our database, and then that yields a good record and then a good result for your patron. So they're thinking in terms of training on a recurring basis, possibly quarterly or twice a year. That way, if new staff join the library, if staff get promoted, you'll know when this training on these fundamentals is going to be offered. They want it connected to consortial and the national cataloging standards, so they want it to follow the RDA rules, really up and coming trends, and not just a standalone training. They're thinking too, though, not just fundamentals, but also supplementary sessions. They're talking about sessions for things like handling vendor records, cataloging non-traditional formats, things like cake pans, things like Wii's and Roku's. Also too, cataloging trends, things like linked data, topics like authority control and other types of database maintenance. So I think there's a lot of promise from this group, because they're seeming to think not just in terms of those basics, but also too on those sessions that are really up and coming topics. They're saying too that they realize there needs to be live training offered at multiple sites or via Polycom, which I think is the next best thing if you can't go live somewhere, is to do the Polycom. And then too, there would be a self-guided component. So there'd be handbooks, videos, worksheets, again, all building this cataloging training archive that could really help supplement just what we here at RSA do, as well as the other consortium. So next steps for this group, it has a really short tour of duty, so to speak. So we're supposed to really have recommendations ready for the Rails Consortia Committee in October of this year. So we really have to keep moving forward. We're trying to get clarification, and this is the subgroup I'm on with 2 colleagues from the Oak Park Public Library.
we're getting clarification from that consortia committee on what the scope of our best practices need to be, because we actually started writing best practices somewhat generic so that they could be applied to Rails member libraries, whether they belong to an automation group like RSA, whether they belong or not. So really generic enough for everybody. But actually, Ann Slaughter, who's our kind of our liaison between this group and the Rails committee, she thinks they might actually only be tied just to consortia libraries. So if that's the case, we'll need to rework what we were doing. One thing too I thought was really encouraging, this group, the committee chair, Carrie from Batavia, she's talking with Laconia, which is that northern networking group, about the possibility of a Rails partnership. And I said if she can make that happen, I think if Rails sponsors any of those Laconia programs that are always held up north, if Rails is part of those, they need to be archived and made accessible for other members. So we'll see what comes of that, but she is meeting with Laconia officers soon to talk about a partnership there for training. And then two other things I'll mention. They're thinking of a mentoring program too, kind of an idea where if you need specific help on call number assignment, if you need even maybe training beyond what we do here, it could be somebody that who could help you with some of these more in-depth questions that are maybe more cataloging theory and not so much RSA-centric questions. So they're thinking about some kind of mentoring program. The other thing that I think is really exciting, and I think of Warren County when we talk about this, because the Warren County Library has a Burmese collection. Rails is trying to investigate contract services for foreign language cataloging, because what if you get something that's a foreign language and there's no OCLC record? What do you do? Some libraries on this group have said people at their library don't select titles if it doesn't have an OCLC record already available. That's awful that that's being done, but to think at some of these larger suburban libraries, there's selectors avoiding certain titles because there's no OCLC record, that's really alarming. So Rails is really trying to think of a way through this group where world language cataloging and other types of special cataloging can have some kind of contractual arrangement, so it could help us get the quality records that we need that maybe would be beyond our capability here of making. The last detail I'll share about that group, they're very interested, I talk about like I'm not on it, both Liza and I are on it, but this training subgroup in particular, they're especially interested in ideas from you guys about training needs. So I know we've talked a lot about fundamentals training, how that would be helpful, but if you have ideas for cataloging training, either let Liza or I know and we can share them with the working group. I know too, Joe and Louise at Rails, the CE team, they always take suggestions too. So that's something that I know this group really wants as this training component gets started. Okay, that's probably more than enough. You probably didn't care about all that, but I think it's important to keep you informed though, because whatever this group comes up with, I do think that it's going to be part of our cataloging operations here. Since it's our parent system, we want to make sure that we can work together with it, and I think there's a lot of promise, especially in the training opportunities. Yeah. Okay. Do you want to?
We're on to number 8, next RSA database meetings. The in-between meeting, which is virtual, Wednesday, March 29th, 2017, 10 to 11:15. And then the regular meeting, which has both in-person and virtual attendance, is Thursday, May 18th from 9:30 to 12.
Does anyone have anything else they wanted to share? It's a miracle. We're done early. It's a post-Christmas miracle.
I had a question that maybe you guys, somebody might know. That how often does your library do like a complete inventory of everything?
I thought never was going to be an answer.
Every other year.
Every other year.
I mean, we took the iPad out with mobile search and, they went through, I think they've gone through all of the sections, so
We went all the way through everything once in
Right.
10 years.
Okay. Ours hadn't been done in like 20 some years, and then they did it, I think, in 2012, and then I started in late 2013, and I'm trying to formulate a plan for when we should do the next inventory because it's going to take a lot of staff hours. Every other year?
I do it every other year.
That's amazing.
In ours, we didn't make a concerted effort. It was those times when we have 3 people instead of the 2 people. Here, this is a project you can, this is your project.
You'd start and stop
You know where
it
you
sounds
started,
like.
you know where you stopped. If you finish that section, come see me, we'll send you to the next one.
I was thinking of doing the things that circulate the most, like our DVDs, which are in the cases out on the shelf and with no security devices, every 5 years, and then everything like the stacks, everything else every 10 years. But I don't know what's actually reasonable. And we have a really, really small level of theft. When they did one after it having not ever, I think, been done since they moved into that building, it was way less than 1%. It was more like 0.1, with most of that being DVDs. So I'm just trying to figure out a plan. I didn't know if anybody had any advice.
What do you do at normal since you're a bigger collection? No, okay. Never done one, okay.
What we did, more than finding things that were stolen or missing, we found things that had been checked out to missing and were in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And we found things that were cataloged somewhere along the way. We changed a scheme, and this is, so we fixed a lot of that stuff.
How about at Pekin, since you're a bigger library?
We closed.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
nice. Wow.
So that's been 3 years.
okay. Is there a contact, maybe someone you could reach out to there at Pekin?
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, that'd be a good question to ask on some of the Rails listservs too. I'm sure you get lots of input. Maybe every director do like the director's only listserv and just see what the consensus is.
Or even the tech services one too. There's a lot of people on that one.
The circulation.
Or circulation, yeah.
Okay. And for most libraries, do you think tech services is usually the one that handles an inventory like that?
Might be
You
a
don't?
team approach, yeah.
Because I think previously it was tech services, but I have one less person than I did at the time that they did the whole thing. And she was devoting the person that has since retired, devoted many hours to it.
My sense of having done inventories 3 different places, 3 different ways is that it's a fairly low-level staff. When I worked at the college, it was students who got set up to scan the barcodes, and then tech services looked at problems.
Okay.
The barcodes told us. And
That's a good
same
idea.
with the Air Force, and here, it was one of my low-level staff that went out and
Because besides tech services, I supervise the pages, so it might be easier to get more page hours since they don't make very much money than for my tech services staff.
It's just paid, I mean, it's just basically scanning.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, this came up different, so that's fine.
Yeah. And we have a laptop card scanner set up that we can use for it. Cool. Thank you, guys. Well, I guess if nobody does anybody else have anything? Otherwise, we're adjourned.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. We'll see you in May.
I can't believe that worked out so well. 1 minute early.
I know. It's a miracle.
Yeah.